Here we are back on the show, and I've been looking forward to this all day, Sandra, because we've got David Watson joining us here.
Oh, you say to all the girls and boys.
Not really.
No?
No,
okay.
Because this is interesting.
Oh,
Not
okay.
that the other stuff isn't interesting.
I was listening to some of them. I found it very interesting.
But this is channeling, right? Mm-hmm. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. But, I mean, channeling is kind of what we all do anyway. We channel ourselves every given moment of the day, as I always tell people. But what I do is something a little outside of that as well. Well,
I know, and we're going to get into that. But I just want to... I remember it would have been probably about 1981. Mm-hmm. No, sorry. About 1984 or 5. And a friend of mine was reading this book, and I go... And the book was... Jane Roberts, like the Seth
yes.
book, right? And I remember looking at that book and reading it. I think I read it, and I was totally blown away.
Yeah, Seth Speaks. That was probably the one you read.
That was probably it.
Yeah.
And because I had not, I mean, I'd heard the name Edgar-Cayce, and that goes back to like the 30s, but I didn't really know anything about it. But when I read that Jane Roberts book, I was like, what is this? What is this phenomenon? I'd never heard of it before, and now today it's like...
Well, she basically created with Seth an architectural design for how channelers today work.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't. She would often channel in a conscious, semi-conscious state. She'd have a cigarette and a beer during the process. She interacted. Her voice changed dramatically, which doesn't happen with some people. The longer I've been doing it, the more it's come back to sound more like me than it sounded. Because when I first started, it sounded like I was some kind of Middle English Shakespearean guy.
Well, I mean, what is with that?
Prithee, feethee, you know.
I know.
I don't know.
Like all those. I mean, on a lot of those channel entities, they all have that weird British accent.
Well, you know what I think it is I think it's sort of an impression that that's kind of what we are supposed to be doing. Don't forget,
keep up the image, right?
Well, you know, you pick up a glass of water and you want to drink out of a blue one, a green one, a dirty one, a clean one, whatever you want, you know. It's the vessel. You know, and yes. I think it's how that vessel interprets the information. I think the information is valid. There's just different ways of it being I guess, shared in that way. But I think also what happens is that person's own belief systems become intermixed with the process. It's impossible not to, because we're physical beings here. You know.
Well, plus, you know, the thing is, the British accent is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I have a brother-in-law, and like, he's only a year or two older than his sister.
Yeah.
But he kept a British accent, and she didn't. But he
he did that because he wanted all the girls.
It works.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, exactly.
It turns on all the girls.
Or the Cockney.
It's the accent or the dog.
I don't know. But you know, I mean, you can do all that kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
but I think well, my family's British. You know, and they all sound British. But well, my grandparents did, and my parents did. But the kids, we were all raised in Toronto, out in the beaches and up in Scarborough. You know, Scarborough. You know.
Yeah.
Doing the road.
So you said you've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
So how is? My God, it must have changed.
Yeah,
over
I started
that
when I
time.
was 10 or 11, I think.
And what happened? What happened? Like, was that? I don't want to say what year, but was that? Did you know what channeling was?
Well, you know, it's my channeling experience was basically centered around a good friend of mine who's going to his 80th birthday. In fact, on the 14th of this month, down in Fort Erie. That's my pal Cliff Preston, who channels the Echo. Anyway, and he still does. I first saw him at a weekend event in Niagara-on-the-Lake going back 34 years ago. And I had hair in those days, actually, you know. But I first saw him do a channeling process, and the moment I saw him do it, I went straight into that state of consciousness and just watched the whole thing go on. And I spoke to his wife afterwards, and I said, you know, every time Cliff said something, I knew what he was going to say before he said it. You know, so she kind of wired me into saying, well, you ought to come to our Keys course, which is a special course they offered back in the day to help people develop their psychic abilities, you know. So I thought, well, that would be very interesting. I have a very honest background around all of this stuff anyway. My grandmother was a very psychic person. She used to do card readings and palm readings and stuff like that when I was a kid. And she promised she was going to teach me how to do all this stuff, right? And of course, when I was 16, that was the big year. And she said, well, I have a confession to make, David. I don't really read cards or tea leaves. I read people. I just know things. And the conclusion I came to was that she had a very highly evolved sense of intuition, which is really where it begins, when we begin to look at this kind of process. But, bringing it fast forward by the time I saw Cliff do it, I believed in what he was doing. I knew what he was talking about. I knew some of the information he gave, particularly about me and some of the things I was doing at the time. Couldn't have known any other way. And so it was what I call a hit or a convincer. And it was about a year after that. We became good friends, in fact. And it was about a year after that I was up visiting him. He lived in Bolton with his late wife, Linda. And one day it was strawberry season. We were going to make crepes and strawberries. So we had to get some small cask brandy, of course, to set it all on fire with. So we go into Orangeville to pick up a bottle of brandy, right? And on the way back, I'm bugging Cliff again. I said, when are you going to teach me how to do this channeling thing? You've been promising me for the last year. And he says, tonight. Just like that, bam. It was like, oh my God, tonight? He said, yeah. So we got home, and after having copious amounts of crepes and brandy and whipped cream and strawberries, I was ready, And I did go into trance the very first time. It's on my website. I talk about the story, and it was a very profound experience for me. And I immediately started getting information. And it was quite fascinating. It's a very organic experience, the channeling process. It's not like there's this voice over there. And some people actually, I guess, do experience that. But I never have anybody whispering in my ear or tapping me on the shoulder and say, you have to tell these people this stuff. It's a very unobtrusive kind of process that I actually deal with. Anyway, that was the night that I started, way back in 84, whatever it was, 85.
Now, was that because I know you channeled the Willows.
Yes.
Was that the Willows coming through?
Yeah, it was.
Back then?
Well, I call them the Willows,
Yeah.
I like willow trees. I later found out that they're also called the Tree of Love by a lot of North American Aboriginal folks.
Yeah.
They would make, particularly in this part of the country, they would make baskets out of the willow branches and papoose. The little woven things they would put their kids in, like a little cradle. Aww. And so they called it the Tree of Love because it embraced their children, So it was kind of a nice touch to have that, But I always thought the willows reach for the sky and touch the earth, which kind of appeals to my sense of poetic,
So did they ever come through at inopportune times?
Well, no. You know what I find with this kind of thing? I find that what we do is we are actually, it's always been a part of us. Like when I first started channeling, I thought there was them and me. That's what it felt like.
Right, like separate.
Yeah, but in actual truth, what it turned out to be was that it was just me, and it was me connecting through my higher self into a universal state of consciousness that we all are part of. There's one, as they used to say in that what's that movie? The immortal Scotsman, there can only be one, and there can only be one. We live in a singular universe, and we're all come from that original source. We all have the ability to touch it at its core, and I think people who channel do that. They open up from their singularity, step outside of their singular consciousness, and step into like universal consciousness and mind. And in that place, we're obviously in a more resourceful state of consciousness. I kind of liken it to this: when we come down onto the earth, because I believe that we're spiritual beings on a physical journey. So when we come onto the earth, we're kind of like come down with one of those like newfangled little flashlights they got. You see them on TV all the time. They hold them up like that, and they've got little beam, they're shining on everything. That's what our lives are like. We come down here, and we shine it around in this kind of like apparently dark world. Wherever we look is what we see. But when we start channeling, it's like somehow we can open the lens a little wider, or we're pulling back, or we're going into the light itself, and things become more and more illumined along the way. So as you step into that higher state of consciousness, into that state of greater sense of understanding, you just have more information available. And not just information, but common sense, it seems, wisdom, whatever you want to call it, that's like a universal wisdom that's within all of us. And it suddenly has a chance to break loose and come free and to be shared, with the world around us. It's a fascinating experience.
So David, every single one of us can do this then?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what
I
you
teach
do.
people how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, once or twice a year, we whip out a little channeling course and have anywhere from 3 or 4 to 20 people show up. It just depends on you know what's doing in that particular time for people. But it's always the right number of people.
So where does a person have to be to feel ready to take the course?
Where do they have to be? Well,
in terms of
they have to know me first.
Okay, that's a given that they do now.
They do now. Hello, but a person has to be inside. They have to be in a place where I think they're seeking a higher state of consciousness for themselves, something outside of the day-to-days that we're caught up in, outside of like the world that we believe is true. You know, like it's like we all showed up at a big movie and we're sitting there looking at the movie. We don't even go out for popcorn, half of us. You know, we don't go to the bathroom. We just sit there fixated on it, and then nobody ever turns around and goes, well, you know, there's a projection room back there, and there's another movie theater over there. I wonder what's going on over there. But you know, that's what we do when we come into life. So when we step in and we focus on those things, you know, we get locked in on it. But when we start saying inside of ourselves, you know, it would be nice to look in the other room. I wonder what's there. Or I'd like to go up into the projection room and see what the guy's doing. He's probably having a bologna sandwich and a Coke or something, but, you know, it doesn't make any difference, you know. You go up there and find those things out. And that's when people get to that state in life when they say, you know what, I'm going to try something different. You know, and you know, I've had people say to me, well, I don't know about channeling. Like, wouldn't I get, like, taken over? And I think to myself, if that's your fear, then don't do it. You know, if you have a fear of being controlled, I mean, hell, we have enough trouble. You're just on this planet controlling each other.
Yeah.
And of course, people who control, you know, like to control other people, which is most of us, really should be working on, you know, taking charge of ourselves. You know, not trying to control the people around us. Right. Well, I can't control myself, so I'll control everybody else around me. You know, that way things will be in order. Hey, don't do that. You know, so it's kind of like that, but. The real aspect of this is where we're at a place and we don't worry about being controlled or controlling. We get into a place where we can begin to let go of our need to feel that we even have to control anything, and we step into a place where we take charge of our lives. And taking charge is a little different, a lot different actually, than being in control. Because when you're in control, you have one choice, right? And the one choice is to stay in control. When you're in charge, you have multiple choices. If you got kids, you know what I'm talking about. You're not in control of them, you know. Never. But you're in charge of them all the time. And it's the same with ourselves. We're never in control of ourselves. We're always in charge of ourselves.
But isn't it when a person is always, you know, thinking or always wanting to be in control, it's because really they're not in control? Because why do you have to be in control?
Because we're told to be.
But we're not in control, right? That's why we feel we need to.
Because we're not taught how to do it. We're taught certain ways, discipline. You know, and usually it's capital or corporal punishment. Sometimes it's capital punishment, but corporal punishment, you know, it doesn't do that. It depends where you were born in the year and in the world and what century you were born in, you know. But in this one, usually it's not capital punishment to get people to do things. You're going to get them to do it once, you know, that's it. But corporal punishment will be used, intimidation, bullying, all the kind of things that a society has really become very sophisticated at. It always makes me laugh. We always talk about bullies in the world, right? And in actual fact, you know, this is what makes the world go around. This group of people pushing that group of people around. And if they can't do it, they'll get these people over there to come and do it for them, you know. But no, we're just organizing the world, you know. But in actual fact, what I talk about in taking charge of ourselves is really a more powerful thing, because the moment we let go of trying to control everything and we take charge, and we don't get rid of our controls. Controls are very important for organizing our lives. You know, I mean, we have to have those things. You know, you need a control to turn your TV on and off, and that sort of thing, right? But it won't start your car. You know, it won't cook dinner for you. You know, so. Controls are all limited.
And they have their place.
That's right. Well, they do. And you know what? They can be changed. See, controls are kind of like, oh, geez, this one doesn't work anymore. You know, I'll get another one. I'll go down to Rogers and get another clicker or whatever, you know. But when you're in charge of things, you're always in motion. That's the beautiful thing about being in charge. It gives you a sense of being in the flow. Because in the middle of something comes up, and the moment you start to have a panic attack, you know there's a control issue. You know, either you're out of control, or somebody's trying to control you, or a situation is, I can't get out of it. So at the end of the day, what happens is that we get stuck in that place, and we get all wound up. We get stressed. We start projecting into negative futures that never existed, and creating this whole, mumbledy-jumbledy of life for ourselves that usually never comes to pass. But we like to spend time worrying because apparently it seems to be the thing that's socially expected of us.
Yeah, well, so when you talk about the metaphor you use about coming down into this life with your flashlight and you point it wherever and you see whatever you're looking at, right? Like, I mean, it's reminding me of, I saw some interview with Dolores Cannon, and somebody was asking Dolores Cannon about the chemtrails, right? Yeah. And Dolores said, I don't worry about the chemtrails. Because she's focused on other stuff. But, I mean, still, I have some difficulty actually really understanding that.
What, understanding chemtrails?
No,
or
understanding that,
that
if they're real for some people, then...
No, they're real for everybody. Chemtrails are real for everybody. What Dolores is saying is more of a philosophical process, in my opinion. She says, well, I'll concentrate on other things, those aren't important to me. In other words, she understands the bigger picture. She understands that she's not eternally, physically able to live forever, not in this body. Yeah. And she has other fish to fry that she doesn't want to focus on the negativity and attaching herself to. What are they doing up there? What are they spraying on?
Because that's like where you're poking your flashlight.
That's right, wherever you are. However, when you see the big picture, chemtrails are part of our modern world. Yeah. Okay? We don't really know what the purpose of them is. We got lots of guesses on it. They're over every country in the world. So none of the governments ever turn around and say, let's shoot them down. And we're being told, oh, it's normal. But then, then there's people flying around taking samples of the stuff in the air, and they're saying, no, it's not. They're really dumping something up there, and blah, blah, blah. And it goes back and forth. There's a whole controversy about it. And the biggest thing that happens, especially on the internet, and God bless them on Facebook, we walk around getting really afraid. And you know what? Remember the old times? You'd be watching TV, and they see the Twilight Zones coming on. Be afraid. Be very afraid. And that's exactly what they're doing to us, putting all this stuff out there. What's to be afraid? I figure whatever they're sticking in the air, they got to breathe it too.
Very good point.
And unless they're helium-breathing aliens, I don't think that we don't have to have that great a concern about it. But what we have to do is understand the purpose of it. They're trying to do something that we're not aware of.
When you say who's the government?
Well, they being a group of people who have an understanding of what's going on the Earth, that can be information provided by our scientific community.
Now, do they have our best interests at heart, or are they?
Well, we don't know who they are, but okay. I think that's a feeling that is probably, what do? They create cloud cover. What does cloud cover do? Well, it keeps the stuff underneath cooler, and it reflects stuff back into space. Okay. Now, what we do know is, for example, in the last 100 years, we found that our sun's electromagnetic energy shield has increased by 230% since 1901. It's just like, there's that's just information. Go on the internet and check it out. You start going, well, that's pretty big. Yeah. And now we're having sunspot activity. We're having all kinds of stuff happening. And now the latest thing is we're discovering that there's this huge energy anomaly that appears to be coming through our quadrant of the Milky Way. Our quadrant. The Milky Way is 200 million years across, just to fly from one end to the other. 200 million light years. That's a little bit of a trip, and it's one of the smaller galaxies, But this energy has come from another galaxy as far as is being taught to us, and is being, I shouldn't say taught to us, but is being picked up by our scientists. And it's heating up all the planets. The electromagnetic energy in the sun has increased, as I say, 230% since 1900. Venus has increased, 2,500% in brightness since 1990. I looked at Venus the other morning. It looked like an airplane was landing. I'm going, oh, that's interesting. The planets are all heating up.
So have you asked the Willows about this?
Well, yeah, they just talk about that as a huge energy anomaly that's coming through here. And they say that energy anomalies of this nature change our dynamics, our DNA structures.
Okay.
Okay, it's inevitable. I mean, we're created from the energy of the sun when you really think about it. You know, all those high frequency things coming through are indeed affecting the Earth. They're affecting us. They're affecting our evolution. You know, and right now they're affecting the Earth so dramatically that the Earth is heating up like a microwave right now. It's like we're being microwaved by the energy that's coming into into our galaxy from another galaxy. And there's information out there that talks about one galaxy and two galaxies colliding, and you know, and they got pictures of it in NASA like this and something. They're one, and then there's this huge energy that comes out of the middle of a black hole, and then pow comes out, and they call it X-ray energy. And I'm going, X-ray energy. Donuts. You know, what the hell are they talking about? You know, we've got the scientific know-how to take pictures of this stuff, but we have no idea of how to interpret it.
What it means.
You know, so that's the anomalies that we're watching there. So we can pretty well tack anything we want onto that information. But that energy happened, according to what our scientists tell us, over 3.5 billion years ago. And those lights that are hitting us now from that thing, so we can see it happening, happened 3.5 billion years ago. But what about the energy that came out of that collision? That happened that time. And if we're seeing it, the light, we're also getting the energy coming through us.
Yeah.
And that means that's what we're dealing with. So the big picture is we're being bombarded by this massive amounts of energy. We're being bombarded by massive amounts of extra energy coming out of the sun. You know, I mean, have you ever seen Space News? Have you ever watched Space News?
I have checked it out.
It's very cool, you know, because they give you a day-to-day breakdown of what's happening on the sun today, you know, amongst other things, right? You know, it's shining. That's good to know. But when the Earth's being hit by these high-frequency waves, they pass through us, they pass through everything, and they pass through the Earth. And if you throw an egg into a microwave and turn the microwave off, the egg at some point blows up. Not that Krypton is going to happen here, you know. It's like, you know, Earth's not. That's not. But what is happening with the Earth? And this happened in many times before. I'll explain why with some of the information the Willows has given us around this. Is it's actually causing the mantle to begin to heat up more. So the magma underneath the mantle begins to bubble up to the top more because of the pressure of the Earth on top of it. Hence, the increasing in volcanic activity in the last 15 years by over 400% over the previous 150 years.
Wow.
Okay. Hence, increasing the number of earthquakes by over 500%.
Wow.
Major earthquakes. And why? Oh, and my favorite is our Inuits. You know, the report, and it shows up every so often, you know, in some little newspaper, CP or CN or something like that. It's just, you know, Inuit chief says the stars and the moon aren't where they were before. And you start thinking, now, did they move or did the Earth move? So if you think of the Earth as this sort of like this ball with this really thin skin around it, because you know, look at the amount of, you know, dirt on top of the Earth. It's like very skin. It's like you took an egg. It's thinner than an eggshell, right? And the rest is under there. We don't know what it is. They tell us, oh, it's hot. It's this. It's that. No, we don't know. We're guessing, right? You know, well, we took a photograph of the center of the Earth. Only Irwin Allen did that. Journey to the center of the Earth. The rest of us, it never really happened. It's just somebody's idea. But as that begins to heat up, it begins to slip around the core, right? Think about it. It gets slippery. You know, you ever catch a, you know, one of the little marshmallow on fire that
a roast
you catch, and after it catches fire and you blow it out, it starts turning and the end falls off, right? And then there's a marshmallow left inside, and there's the one burning on the ground. It's kind of what's happening to the Earth, only nothing's going to fall off. But it's so huge, the whole Earth is shifting around the core. So as a result, the magnetic north seems to be moving faster. It's not moving, it's staying where it is. The Earth is moving. You know, the dolphins and the whales that keep beaching themselves and the birds that are flying into mountains and buildings, they're following electromagnetic, you know, waves that have been there since you know, the last shift of this nature, and that's how they follow. That's how they follow their journey. And if it's all shifted and suddenly that electromagnetic you know, line is going through an island, they'll swim up on the beach of that island because they're not looking. You know, they don't have. So they follow that. So we have all of these things happening in the Earth, and it's very interesting. That as a result, somebody on the Earth has gone, you know, well, we're kind of aware of this. Maybe we should like try and cool the Earth down a little bit. You know, let's see if we can bounce those rays back into outer space. So I think it's a benign thing they're trying to do. You know, I mean, other than the fact that you've got all the conspiracy theorists, right? Well, you know what they're doing on the Earth, really? And you sort of, oh, what are they doing? Oh, they're preparing it for an alien invasion. Oh, really?
Yeah, Project Bluebeam.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Right? Or the Black Goo.
Yeah, that's it. All kinds of stuff like that. And that's very nice to think, you know.
Not so, but
But you know, there's a lot that can be said about all of this stuff. And I mean, I know it's kind of woo-woo for a lot of folks when you start talking about it, because they sort of go, well, I never heard any of this. And of course, the reason you never heard any of it is because you're too damn busy wondering if Donald Trump is going to get become the president of the United States, or you know, whatever else piece of poo-poo that we get thrown up from mainstream media. You know, which is why God bless you guys. At least you have an opportunity to put people onto the air in some format for other people to have an opinion or to bring out information that may not be readily accessible on mainstream.
So you're saying we don't have anything to worry about. This is just a natural course of business.
I feel that.
Okay.
You know, the thing we have to realize is we always talk about us and them. The only thing we forget is that we're all on this ball of dirt together, plummeting through Earth at hundreds of thousands of miles per second. You know, following the sun somewhere. You know, as we spiral around behind it. You know, so it's really quite a fascinating journey that we're taking here. We're not even aware of this, but you know, we're becoming more and more aware as these subsonic or high frequency, or maybe both, cosmic rays are hitting the Earth every day. So it's those things here that are affecting us, and there's different ways that we can get around dealing with them. And I think that once we begin to realize that, then we can kind of forget about the paranoia of our little world that we live in and begin to look at a bigger picture of what's really happening. You know?
Well, I'm wondering if we can get the Willows to weigh in on some of this stuff, David, and because I mean,
nice segue, Hugh.
Was it? Thank
nice
you.
Segue.
I was going to ask, do they ever disagree with David?
Well, actually, all the time, except for the fact the stuff I'm sharing right now is stuff that I've taken from some of the readings they've been giving. So it should be in alignment.
But
no, they don't disagree with me. I disagree with them. You know, what? They said that? You know, I'll do whatever I want.
You know, the thing is, maybe we can, I don't know, if you're going to bring the Willows on, but it's like we have all this technology now. Right? Yeah. I forget who, somebody said, maybe it was Brzezinski or something, said that it used to be easier to control 1 million people than it was to kill 1 million people. Now it's easier to kill 1 million people than it is to control 1 million people with the nuclear weapons and that sort of thing. But, you know, you hear...
Well, that's the potential of killing them. It's just the threat of killing them, then you control them, you see.
Well, that's one thing, but then you got all
fear.
These... Yeah, you've got, they talk about mind control, like scalar waves, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes it seems too much, like...
what are you going to do about all that, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Eh? Here's what you do, okay? You stop reading all that crap.
Yeah.
You know, you start working on yourself. You start becoming more introspective. You determine what your connection and grounding is on this planet. And you then start teaching other people to do exactly what you're doing.
How do you do that?
Which is well, glad you asked. But let's finish this thought first,
okay.
though. That what we do in that place is we begin to shift inside of ourselves, and we begin to look at our journey, you know, and understand that our journey is important. It's not a matter of turning around and being ignorant of it or going into denial about what's happening in the world. But the one thing we have to remember about it all is the fact that it's all us that's doing it. It's just some great big frickin' game that a bunch of people want to do hanging out on this planet who got nothing else to do. Look at that metal over there. It's kind of like yellowy and it's bendy, and there isn't a lot of it. Let's make that expensive. Let's make this stuff inexpensive. We'll call those diamonds and we'll call those quartz crystals, you know? And we'll you know, and so I mean, what we do is we create for ourselves our own world, and the world we live in is basically, you know, it's a war machine, isn't it? You know, you really think about it, it's all based on war. 50% of the world's economy is based on, you know, us trying to bump each other off, you know, in large scale, because we're so busy. I mean, how many wars are going on around the planet right now? Lots. You know,
that's depressing.
I got more than the one. I got fingers on one hand and maybe toes on both feet.
And probably many we don't even know about.
Well,
right?
yeah. Well, it just depends on who's reporting what. You know,
And
we get a certain amount of news that's filtered through to us. You know, and the rest of it we're not sure about, because if what you don't know, you don't know.
Okay, David. I know Sandra's got to get going pretty soon, right, Sandra?
I could stay for this.
But I would love to hear the Willows. And should we ask questions, or should we just let the Willows talk?
Well, I think asking questions would be a good thing.
Okay.
I think I can see the look on Sandra's face. She's going, I have a few questions here. One or two.
All right. So can we? And then how do maybe we go 5-10 minutes with
you
the
can
Willows?
go as long as you want. This is your show.
Okay.
I have no idea what your timing and your parameters are.
And then okay. So let's go 5-10 minutes and
let's see where it goes from
but
there.
I think this is an important thing to get out there.
Yeah.
And not to frighten people, but to make them aware.
Yeah.
You know, an educated human being is a human being who can make their own decisions. And the very purpose of any of the channeling that I do and any of the work that I do, my life strategizing practice as well as my channeling practice, is to help people take charge of their own lives. It's all about self-empowerment. And it's not about narcissism, because narcissists are people who really don't like themselves at all. You know, they need other people to tell them that they're good, they're cool, they're wonderful.
Yeah.
And but it's about egotism, you know. It's about personal growth. It's about understanding our own core being. So when we can begin to touch with that, then we can begin to grow to another degree of consciousness, because we've got other stuff going on the earth too, which also includes those vibrations. Before we get started on that, I'll just cover that briefly.
Okay. Yeah.
Because what's happening is that you're finding a lot of people out there are talking about this kind of stuff. Yeah. Myself included. Go on YouTube, like there's a ton of stuff on there. Go on YouTube and ask about fifth dimension. And we're not talking about dawning of the age of Aquarius, okay? Fifth dimensional thinking is something that I'm actively involved in teaching classes about and helping people get into that state of consciousness. Fifth dimension doesn't mean you float up through the clouds and go to another planet that's just outside of the Earth's atmosphere. It's about changing our thinking process and going into a more enlightened way of viewing the world.
I'm into that.
Yeah, there you go, kid.
She does that too.
Yeah, good. Well, maybe we could talk about that at some point.
Let's do that right now with the Willows, maybe.
Does this exhaust you at all to do any of this? Like,
What's
do you
that?
get tired channeling them? Does this tire you?
Well, you know what?
We need to respect that too.
Well, no, I know other channelers, and one who passed away a couple of years ago, who believed that every time they go into trance, it takes, you know, like that old Janis Joplin song, take another little piece of my heart now, baby, you know. But me, I figure it's kind of like plugging into the mainstream.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
So I come out of it pretty charged,
okay.
A little dozy, you know, a little dopey, but that's kind of my normal state anyway, you know.
Do you have to drive home?
Huh? Oh,
Are you driving? But you're okay to drive after that?
Yeah, of course
we just
I am.
need to make sure we take care of him.
Oh, don't worry about that drive
okay.
home. Oh, geez,
okay.
You know.
Okay.
I'm driven, you know. But anyway, for that kind of thing, yeah, it should be fine.
Okay.
So if you want to do that, okay. I'll take off my little horn rim specs and get into trance. Of course, the process is pretty straightforward. I just close my eyes and go into trance. I'll say, we're here now. You can say, hi, Sandra, and you, please balance the form. And that they just balance my chakras, and then off we go. And you can ask any questions you want. Okay. They'll say something after that, and then off you go. And when you're finished, you can say, we're complete.
Okay.
Okay?
Wow. Thank you for leaving it up to us. Wow.
We say
yeah, you say it.
Balance the form. Please balance the form, and then we're complete.
Yeah, at the end, when you finish your questions.
Okay. Yes, okay.
You know, hopefully you'll be able to get a couple in there. We'll see. Okay, folks, here we go. Yes, we are here now. How may we be of service at this time?
I, Sandra.
I'm Hugh.
Please balance the form.
Indeed. One moment. Yes, this is in effect with the agreement of the entity David. We welcome you both in your questions. You may now proceed as you wish.
You go.
Okay.
You go.
Hi. Okay. Do you have any, right now, do you have any kinds of words of advice for the people listening as to how they can get in touch with their higher self?
Well, it's just a matter of understanding here, perhaps the nature of a computer.
Okay.
Conscious mind is like the RAM on your computer, yes? Okay. Stores information, small amounts, yes?
Yes.
Holds it for short periods of time, has a small memory. average human only having a memory of about 20 to 30 seconds before it starts shifting, yes? Then, of course, there's the unconscious mind, or as some call it, the subconscious mind, which stores all of your memory, of all of your beliefs, and all of your emotions. This is like the ROM of a computer, the main we refer here of hard disk, you see?
Okay.
So it contains all of the programs. So your mind acts flawlessly, interacts with the conscious mind. The higher self, on the other hand, or what we often call the superconscious mind, is that part of you that is always watching everything you do. You know that part.
Yes.
Each person knows that part. You watch yourself do things and in processes and take notes. And perhaps you've wondered or haven't wondered who that part of you is, but that is your higher self. It's also your eternal consciousness. Some people call it your soul. As a result of this, this be the higher consciousness, this be the expanded part of yourself that's outside of time and space. Does not think in terms of 3 dimensions, does not think in times as you would understand it in physical terms, yet projects into the physical to have the experience of consciousness on the physical level, thereby understanding the nature here of being, so you can have emotions, all emotions, for coming from original energy, that which is creative consciousness, which is what the higher consciousness is contained with and made from at the same time, you see. Mm-hmm. And it is this part that contains all knowledge, all times, and is in a constant state of changing and shift. So there is no ever stopping of the same, you see? Mm-hmm. So the higher consciousness then allows you to connect with universal consciousness, thereby allowing you to channel that information through into the conscious mind. So that's how that would be the mechanics, so to speak, of this particular process. Okay. Now, how to bring the conscious mind, or the superconscious mind and the conscious mind together, there are several exercises that can be done. But one very clearly is just to sit down and imagine that you have 3 floating discs. One is your conscious mind, just above you, your unconscious mind, and higher up, your superconscious mind. So sit there for a moment, imagining it, and then just reach up, take your hands on both sides of the superconscious mind, and pull it right down, bringing the unconscious and the conscious mind together, and bring it down into the body as so. You will have an immediate change in the way that you feel, and you will begin to have an experience that allows you to step out of your normal day-to-day consciousness and way of viewing the world. This is how you bring the two together in this way, very quickly. You see, in times gone by, there was the necessity here of deep meditations for these kind of programs and processes. Mm-hmm. But that's because the vibration that was hitting the earth, it was condensed. You see, these waves, the entity David was talking about, yes, that are coming from outside of the galaxy, or intergalactic cosmic rays, so to speak. Sounds like science fiction, does it not? As they come through this quadrant of your universe, they come through compressed and expanded. They last about 35,000 years between each one. Okay. And you're just coming out the other end of a compressed one, you see? Right. Which is what the Mayans were talking about with their BB of shifting of the millennia, you see? Yes. And in this way here, the new one that is coming in is expanding. And as it does, it becomes easier and easier to manifest things and to use your consciousness and to use your imagination to make things happen. Hence the popularity in these current information such as the secret and the law of attraction and things of this nature. Right. They're right to a degree in the way that this manifests. Thinking is the best way to travel, you see. Whatever the mind conceives and believes it achieves. Andrew Carnegie realized this over 150 years ago, and still today. It is a truth for your own selves. So this is bringing these together in this way. Okay. And in doing so, what does it do for you? It gives you a greater perspective. You see? Okay, yes. And it opens consciousness to a higher degree. Once you begin to do this on a regular basis, because after you finish the process, you let go and everything pops back into where it normally is. But once you do this on a regular basis, you automatically create a link to that higher self. like a macro program in a computer.
Okay. Yeah.
So in this way here, then you now just zip back and forth between the two, and you walk around after a while with this heightened sense of consciousness working with you all the time. Now, the heightened sense of consciousness will be used or by people in whatever way they want. But for most people who are thinking about this and would even desire this, they are already in a state of consciousness in their life and in their evolution as an eternal soul, where they will use it in a positive and proactive way to help not only lift themselves so they'll have a greater understanding of the life process and have a full life experience, which raises their consciousness, but also because of their commitment to and their connection with the higher consciousness that raises above your own superconscious mind, which is universal consciousness, which all human beings are connected to. Rather like a hand, yes? Mm-hmm. You take a hand with all the fingers. Mm-hmm. You cover the fingers, and all you see is just individual. And when you move away, you see they're all attached to the hand. Well, the universe is like that, only the hand has billions and trillions of fingers, you see? Mm-hmm. And each one of them is interlocked with the other. That when it comes onto the physical plane, it comes from the common origin of superconsciousness and eternal consciousness. So as a result, it's impossible not to be connected on that kind of an etheric level. So when you step into that state, it automatically gives you the opportunity to channel that information, to step into the broader state, and to begin to affect others around you. So that when enough people begin to understand this on this earth level at this time, it begins to move out as a wave and becomes quite literally a positive virus that affects consciousness on the earth. So in doing this, one mind can influence thousands, and depending on the level of consciousness that is reached, even millions of minds, but not going out and trying to do it, but just by the very effect of an osmotic effect that comes from a heightened sense of consciousness. You see?
Yes.
Does this make sense to you?
This makes a lot of sense.
From this perspective here, you then have this opportunity then to raise consciousness on the earth. When you are raising consciousness on the earth, individuals who understand this and begin to practice this internal vision that they hold can begin also to affect the condition of the earth itself, can begin to affect and utilize these energies that are coming through the earth from both the sun and from out of the galaxy, and take these and begin to use them by channeling them through themselves by visualization. Understanding wherever the mind goes, the energy flows. And it's not that you are trying to resist it, but you are stepping into alignment with it. It's like a drop of water dropping into a stream, you see? Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of surrendering to this energy, and in the moment you do that, you become the energy. And as you become the energy with conscious vision, yes, you can begin to direct the energy in a very positive and creative way, because the universe is based upon the very premise of creation. Although many people say yes, but it destroys as well, yes? Mm-hmm. And we would say you can't make an egg or you can't make an omelet without breaking an egg, yes? Mm-hmm. And all of these things recycle constantly. It's all about a huge cycle of consciousness. And as we understand the cycle of consciousness, it is not just a circle, it is a spiral. You see, and it keeps spiraling upward, you see? And as that happens, the mass consciousness of a planet can be raised in this way. And as that happens, that mass consciousness can then begin to interact with the planet itself, which holds a degree of consciousness within its own existence. And in this way, by sending love to the planet, quite literally love, it can begin to calm down the energy on the planet.
Does that mean we can use that power, that mental power, to do things like, because you mentioned the earth magma and that, can we use our minds to ameliorate possible earthquake damage and suffering to people and stuff like that?
Absolutely. And we don't mean to say you have to sit there and grind it in your mind and as if you were trying to strain it, you see? Because it's not a matter of trying, it's a matter of knowing. You see?
What's the difference?
Well, when you try to do something, you push. You understand the basic understandings of Yoda, for example. Either do or do not. Never try. You see?
Right.
That means that you have absolute faith in what you are doing, when you enter into doing it. You see?
Right.
And in this way, you can only then begin to move forward in life in a far more positive way by just believing that what you were doing is the right thing, that the path you are on is the right path. Now, of course, there's a lot more to it than that. We are not trying to oversimplify it, but we are simply pointing out the nature of this kind of thinking process.
Right.
So in doing this, it's very important to note that as you are following this along, you can begin to raise consciousness in the interim, you see? And in doing so, help raising other people's consciousness. You see?
So, but you had mentioned that we don't need to meditate anymore. Did I understand that correctly?
No, we're not saying
vibration?
meditating. We're not saying you don't need to meditate. We're saying here you can do what we would refer to as more of purposeful meditation.
Active meditation.
Yes, more as you would say, more like a Taoist meditation than a Buddhist meditation.
What is that?
Well, Buddhist meditation attempts to quieten everything out.
Right.
You see, Taoist meditation becomes aware that that creation is always in motion.
Right.
For example, a Buddhist meditation, they ask you to focus on the in-breath and the out-breath. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Taoist meditation says focus on all those too, but also there is a space between the breaths. And it's in that space where that sense of peace is described. But in the in-breath and the out-breath is where the activity is. That is where there is that cycle happening.
Okay. Okay.
So in understanding this here, it's a matter of determining a level of calmness within the mind, you see? And the calmness that comes by understanding that each human being is basically like a little pond, yes? To use that as a metaphor. And that pond reflects the sky above it. When there is nothing around to cause that pond to be affected, you see?
Right, okay.
But if a breeze comes across it, or a rainstorm comes up, or the seasons begin to happen, or a frog jumps into it, or one of a million other things, it always affects the surface of the pond. Mm-hmm. But after that stops, the pond returns to its reflective nature. So the mind is designed to reflect that which is about it. When it's affected by those things, it's up to the individual to determine what they want to do when that happens. If they place themselves in what we would call, and this be of a term used by Taoists and Buddhists, taking the host position. And in the host position, you are watching and managing, but not controlling. So, example, if you were watching a little pond that was nice and calm, and a fish jumped out of it, you wouldn't try and be a bear and jump up and catch the fish in midair. You would watch it, and then you would watch the ripples until finally it became calm again. That's how the mind works in this way, in the greater sense, you see. So the understanding that as it comes onto the earth, as you come on consciously onto the earth, you automatically jump into the three-dimensional consciousness, where you are feeling and touching and tasting and smelling, and doing all of the things that are necessary to interact and to survive on this particular wavelength of energy, you see? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So within that here, what you are ultimately looking for is an understanding that here on this plane, you can achieve this state of consciousness and in it step outside of the need to be part of the big cycle, other than to be not just an observer for, it's impossible to it's important to also participate, but as somebody who's no longer, shall we say, attached to that movie they're seeing on the screen.
So in the world, not of the world?
We would say both.
Okay. Okay.
Both.
In the world and
you would say of the world. You're a part of the world, not apart from the world.
Okay.
But a part of it means that you are no longer resisting. The average human being on your planet resists their existence. They question everything, they push against things, and they try to control their environment, whether it's individually or collectively. This resistance is always worn down, for life is an unstoppable force. And humans are not an immovable object, nor are they any more than that, because their resistance is just an idea, you see?
Yes.
But when one surrenders, one dives right in. One isn't waving a white flag and coming out with their hands up. One dives into the stream of life, becomes part of that state of consciousness, and gets to move forward in that highly energized state, which is a fifth dimensional way of thinking and acting and behaving, because you are no longer attached to the need to be connected to things that are not irrelevant to the importance of the life process. A 100-inch TV or a 50-inch TV isn't important to the movement of your life's process. Unless, of course, that's the only thing you have to focus on, or that's what you give importance to. You see?
Yes.
So it's all a matter of personal choice when it boils down to how you're going to view the world. So right now you're living in a world where people are wanting to accumulate things. You see? And have things. And to what end? Because they think it's going to make them happy. Yes? And
Yeah.
because they think it's going to make them happy, they're going to get that. But the moment they have it, they're not happy. They want something else.
That's right.
Then they want something else. That's called consumerism, you see. True happiness is going inside of oneself, learning to love the very fact that one is alive, learning to love oneself, learning to trust oneself, learning to appreciate oneself, and most of important, learning to approve of oneself in a positive and uplifting way. This is where this truth comes out. And once individuals start to see life in this way, they can then step into this larger energy, let go of the need to control the things around them, begin to release their internal self, and basically heal their own core in this way. You see?
I do.
As we would see it.
A question I think a lot of people would want to know is, what happens when we die?
The most important question is what happens when you live?
But the thing is, people are so afraid of dying that it affects how they live.
This is the point. This has come to you from your own religious philosophies
Okay.
that divide the two parts. Not everybody is afraid to die. Not all philosophies are afraid to leave the earth. Many philosophies believe in reincarnation.
Right.
Many philosophies believe that it's just part of a journey. North American native talk about leaving, dropping the robe and walking from the red road onto the blue road, the red road being the world of blood, the blue road being the road of spirit. And of course, the robe is the body.
Okay.
It's no more than that. But the reason people are afraid to die is because they've bought the story that of sin and guilt and shame. And they carry that through a life because nobody's perfect. Yes?
Right.
Everybody has odd thoughts and strange visions at some point during life. But when one is taught that these are against the rules of God, which were invented by man, by the way, somebody had to write them down. Yes.
Yes.
And the fact is that these people live in fear of not what's going to happen here, but what's going to happen after they are here.
Which affects how they live here, though.
It affects how they live, and most of them live lives of quiet desperation because they're not living the life of fullness within themselves.
So if they didn't fear death, so if people knew there really was no such thing as death, wouldn't that help them to be more joyful in their life?
Well, there is such thing as death. When you see somebody who's dead, they look dead. They don't look like themselves at all. They look very dead. There's no animation, and after a while, they need to be buried or burned or something.
Or eaten.
That's right. So, but the fact being here is that that's what people see.
Yes.
And because the death process is something that has been, shall we say, greatly supported by religion.
Religion, yes.
Yes?
Yes.
It gives the people alive a chance to control. It's another way to control population. You see?
Right.
And of course
Yes.
you could say, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to put a bullet in your head. Well, it makes sense. If you want to be here the next 10 minutes, you're going to do that.
Exactly.
You
Yes.
see? But it's not that. That's not the fear of death. That's called being sensible and saying, well, I'm not quite ready to leave just
Yes,
yet. You see?
yes, yes.
But this is the truth. But people die every day. People are born every day. In fact, on your planet, hundreds of thousands are born every day, more than are dying. So the population is continuing to grow
Right.
in this way here. But the fact remains is the death process is something that is a very important aspect of the life process. There's a beginning and an end. It's what you do while you are between the two that matters. And matters not only for the world, but more importantly, matters for your individual evolution as an eternal soul. You see?
Now, is that part of reincarnation too?
Well, you could call it that, reincarnation. or as hillbillies would call it, we say with a smile, reincarnation. But here for you to understand this, we have bad jokes. But the fact remaining here is that reincarnation is a viable reality. But people think that reincarnation means you are, in this life, Bob Jones, and in the next life you'll be Bob Jones being Harry Swanson.
Right,
you see?
right.
It doesn't quite work that way.
Right, yes.
This is far more layered process that involves this particular shifting of energies. Because you have to realize that all beings, all sentient beings, all living beings, are all part of the universal matrix of consciousness.
Yes.
And they were all born, so to speak, or created at the same time the universe was created. And since the universe is infinite and eternal, so are the souls within it. It is a wonderful, wonderful and magical experience for the consistent evolution of consciousness and the soul. It has not just talking about technology, but experience and a consistent shifting. And that's why people are not meant to live forever. To go from one life to another, it gives you opportunities to have so many varied experiences. And they do not necessarily have to be good ones, but experiences that are important in evolving the soul. In certain lifetimes, for example, in this lifetime yourself, you've had much awareness come to you. And what you have done in each bit of awareness as it's occurred for you, it has taken past lives that you have lived in which those were not met. Those were not understood, those things. And what you've healed in yourself in this life, you've healed in all other lives, past and future. So when you have a lifetime of higher consciousness and higher awareness, it's a very important one, looking at your eternal consciousness or your superconscious self in all times, you see?
So for me, at this point in my life, it's very important that I do what I can to alleviate suffering of others, and that means human and non-human. So how do I go about doing that?
Well, you're already doing it. You're already helping people. You're teaching people how to think for themselves. You're interviewing people, and whether they have something to say as we do, or whether they want to just talk about, as this lovely young man who spoke about becoming a lawyer earlier did want to do. These are the things that are important. These are the things that are important to individuals. It is the life experience that matters. What you are doing in the moment that matters, and learning to be in that moment to allow that moment to become eternal for you. It allows you to release yourself from the need to be attached to the life in the same way. And it is not, as some people would like to say, a way of, shall we say, hiding oneself. You see?
Right.
And rejecting life. You see, it is not that. It is quite the opposite. It's a matter of embracing the life process and understanding the greater nature of eternal consciousness.
That makes sense. Do you have a question, Hugh? I think Hugh is gobsmacked.
Yeah, I can't really think of any questions. You are doing a great job, Sandra.
Well, that's right. Hugh is taking notes, yes?
I'm taking lots of notes.
Lots of notes.
So is there any advice you have for any of us in terms of the times that we're in right now, the elections that are happening in the U.S. and the wars? That was another question, is David had mentioned how many wars there are, and there's, a gazillion wars. How can we start to bring peace to the Middle East, I guess, in the world?
Well, first of all, you have to understand the way the world is constructed. It's not news. There's a few at the top, and everybody else protects them. The few at the top are the ones who are trying to stop progress. They'll use technology, and they say, oh, well, here's technology. This is making us progress. Technology doesn't make you progress. All the technology that's come out today, that you're using today, is all technology used, they say, to communicate. But in actual fact, it's invented for them to, or for those small number of people, those are the them, yes, in that way,
yes.
To manage the rest of the population. This is like the time in ancient Rome when the mob was being controlled so easily. Get a couple of Christians and throw them to the lions, yes?
Yeah.
And everyone goes wild. Now you're having in the United States, for example, a series of shall we say, unfortunate events or interesting events or humorous events, which in actual fact are nothing more than a reality TV show. And that's all it is. It's
Okay.
entertainment.
Okay.
It's like watching Survivor with commentators on it. So people don't even have to think about what's going on anymore. They can listen to what the commentators are saying, and it's the commentators who actually give credence to the ramblings of Donald Trump, for example.
Right.
It's obvious the man is not focused on what he's doing, that he has an agenda that's based upon becoming a despot. You see, not becoming a president, but that's because of his vision and his family background. And quite frankly, it's important to remember these people who are doing this kind of thing, they're not against humanity. They are representative of an aspect of human nature. However, it's up to the majority of people as to whether they're going to go along with it or not. You remember the story of the Emperor's New Clothes, yes? Mm-hmm. It only took one child to have everybody become aware the chubby old guy was naked, yes?
Right.
But everybody else didn't see that. They had been so convinced by whatever way that you might call it that's what he was wearing, because nobody wanted to be wrong. And that's the whole thing about human nature. People want to belong. They don't want to be apart from. They want to be a part of, and they will do anything to agree. So that's part of the human consciousness. Once individuals begin to understand that, then they begin to understand that they do have choices to do whatever they want to do. Then they can begin to move their lives forward in a far more productive way.
So you mentioned a bit about technology, and many people think we're towards the, I guess, what you can call end times, and they also talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. Can you help us understand that, or clear up any myths, or debunk any myths, or
about what?
About, are we in end times? Is technology actually going to be the thing that destroys us? And was Atlantis real? Lemuria, was that all real? Ends of civilizations, and are we
easy peasy question? We say with a smile. Yes, Atlantis was real. Lemuria was real. It was known as Pangaea at one point.
Oh, okay.
You see, the Earth did break apart. Of course, it created the continents. That was what Lemuria was. And Atlantis was one of those continents that existed during the breakup and then eventually disappeared to the ocean's bottoms. But, of course, the survivors moved to Europe, moved to Egypt, moved to South America and Mexico, and began to follow, again, the same basic beliefs that they had before, but lost the technology because of the great destruction on the planet at that time. So, understanding the nature of this, it's important to see in today's world that you would see that these are now coming forward. Now, what was the rest of your question regarding Atlantis? What else is real?
Well, are we now repeating the same thing? Are we in end times now?
No, you are not in end times.
Okay.
The world ends for somebody every moment.
Well, this is true. This is true.
And when you look at that
That's
in the
true.
big picture, it helps relieve a lot of stress, you see. But people talk about end times. That's simply a biblical reference here,
Right,
you see.
right.
End times meaning it's the end of a cycle, yes. But it's also the beginning of a new cycle.
What's the cycle?
Well, the cycle is the cycle of consciousness that's also affected by these giant waves that are coming through your galaxy that last for such long periods of time.
Okay, I have a question, Willows. I finally got a question.
Indeed.
What about this CERN thing? Is it going to open up dimensions and allow, like, demonic entities from other dimensions to come through? Is that what they're trying to do? Is there a conspiracy?
You don't need any demonic more demonic entities on this planet than are already here.
In human form, too, right?
Well, you are everything. All of these things are part of the human imagination. Believing that there are these malevolent creatures existing in another dimension of consciousness is like you're buying into Nightmare on Elm Street. You see,
Right.
as a documentary.
And we like that, don't we? That's why we go to see horror films,
You
isn't
love to be afraid. You love to be scared because it gives you a peak experience.
it? Yeah.
Ah,
and that's why
okay.
we watch these YouTube videos.
That's right. Peak experience.
Let's-
And that's why you go on Facebook, so that you can express, quote unquote, your personality, your beliefs, your prejudices, your judgments, and your criticisms. yes, and you're shaming. That's what is done there. There's other information that comes through it as well. But in actual fact, your media is being used in a way that is still manipulating the people who are connecting with it. And the moment you begin to realize that most of the things that come through your media are planned and are part of a larger agenda, which has to do with keeping people nervous and off balance. The more that people are feeling nervous and off balance, the more fearful they feel, and the easier they are to control. You see? So when somebody's traumatized, which you would say the average person in North America is at a level of trauma at about 20 to 30%, and that's big, you see, because that makes them easily influenced by things that makes them fearful.
Right.
You see?
Okay.
Look at the number of people who go and pick up their children from school, waiting in cars to drive a 12-year-old kid home because they're afraid someone's going to steal their child.
Yeah, remember we used to ride our own bikes to school back in the old days.
Or, heaven forbid, walk.
You were forced to and a bike helmet, that costs money.
Yes. Yes.
These are the things to look at,
Yes.
And to understand the nature of the difference in ages. And what's occurring here is that there is a movement that is drawing people more and more into a sense of fearfulness. And that's being encouraged by your government, and is being encouraged by your media. And in putting people into this place, it creates a sense of helplessness. Helplessness and hopelessness create stress. They also create anxiety.
Which creates cancer or illness.
That's correct. You were aware of the number one killer is stress in the world today. And there is so much research that is being done on this. And you say, how can we get out of living a stressful life? And we say, stop wanting so much. Start living your life. Start going for a walk with your family. Begin to see that you can bring kindness into the world. Begin to bring nobility back into your life. You see?
Right.
Begin to bring into your life the things that you would like other people to give to you. And don't worry whether you get them back from anybody else. You'll feel really good just doing them yourself, you see.
Well, Hugh has a question that I know he's forgetting to ask, and I'm just going to ask it for him. How do we move to a moneyless world?
A moneyless world?
Yes. I don't want to see money anymore. I mean, Hugh doesn't want to see money anymore.
Well, a moneyless world is a very, very difficult world. You already have mostly a moneyless world. You have credit cards, you have bank transfers.
Okay, that's not what I meant.
We know what you're talking about. You will never have a moneyless world because money is a representation. Money is a representation of power and exchange.
Well, we don't want the power.
Well, the power is the power of being able to exchange money for food, money for transportation. And how do you get the money? You go out and you do something that gives you some money that you can then give some other people for money. It's a matter of understanding the nature of industry in this way. Money is not a sinful thing. Money is not the root of all evil. Love of money is the root of all evil.
Okay, but people can't separate that, though.
Well, people can separate that. It's just a matter of the fact they have to be reminded constantly. For anyone to learn something, it has to be repeated again and again and again. Look at what you see on your media. You keep seeing the same paranoid, depressing information coming across. After a while, you come to believe it. So you also can do it in just the opposite way and begin to do exactly the same thing. It's to teach people in a positive, proactive way how to live life in a more loving, gentle, and noble way. You see?
That's great, Willows. I just want to say thank you for spending so much time with us today. And
well, always lots to say here.
Always,
and always lots
learn.
left unsaid, as we would say here. Yes.
Is there anything else you want to say that you just want to mention?
Well, not at this time.
Okay.
This is open here, not our forum, but your own need for answers. You see.
Okay.
So it is greatly appreciated for the time and the opportunity that you provided for our discourse and sharing at this time.
It's greatly appreciated here as well.
Thank you.
So you were complete?
We are complete.
We are complete.
Then we thank you for this opportunity. We ask that you go in peace, love, joy, and harmony, and continue to walk on the path of the Masters. We send you great blessings, and we release the form. We're back. Here we are. back in one piece.
And
Ask
just
the question.
curious, David, are you conscious of what we were all talking about during that process?
Now,
Yeah,
Do you remember anything?
we'd have to talk about it consciously.
Oh, I see.
I get what I call Swiss cheese memory.
Yeah.
At the end of
Holes.
it, there's holes all through it, and then people start to talk about it afterwards. And we sort of go, aha,
Yeah.
I remember.
yeah, that's right, and then we can start getting into it.
It's very cool.
Now, so we're gonna wrap up the show now.
Yes,
we've
we are.
we've spent more time than we thought with
Oh,
the
gosh,
Willows,
wow.
which was great. But David,
Lots to chew on.
besides just the channeling, you're also helping people, right, with life planning and strategies and stuff
Well,
like
I
that.
call myself a life strategist as well, and,
Yeah.
and that enables me to sit down and talk with people about things that are concerning them, to help reframe the way that they're viewing things,
Yeah.
so they can feel better about themselves and their own vision of life.
And
It really helps people a lot, and helps put things into perspective.
So if somebody is out there watching this right now, maybe they're resonating with everything we've just gone through here,
Yeah.
resonating with you, and want to get in touch, what's the best way for them to do
Well,
that?
they can go onto my website, askthewillows.com. All of my contact information is there. I know you're putting it up on the screen here as well, from time to time, and so they can get hold of me that way, or they can call me direct. I think there's a phone number there as well.
I don't have one, but maybe it's on your website.
Is it on your website?
Yeah, it's on the website.
right?
Yeah, it's
So
easy to contact.
there you go. Check out the website.
So call me. I answer my own phone. I don't have a huge staff working for me, just me. So,
That's
and
great.
if I don't answer the phone right away, leave a message. I always get back relatively quickly.
'Cause you're busy
there's the
talking to
contact
somebody
right up
else.
there,
Yeah.
yeah. Perfect.
Thank you so very much. This has been wonderful.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I
it's been
was
great.
quite looking forward to it, and I'm always excited to come and to share with you guys.
And I'm just going to say one thing. If
what
when you
that?
watch this video, David,
Yeah.
if I'm rolling my eyes,
Yeah.
it's because of something Sandra said. Okay. All right.
Or actually, there were a couple times that I think I may have, but it's because it made me think.
Yeah.
Well,
So I'm
actually, it's
thinking-
funny, what he was referring to is last year when I was here, I noticed there was a couple of times when he rolled his eyes, they'd shoot in on him, and there was like screens all around him, and he was looking at the screens like that, and I knew what he was doing, but I said a couple of things, and then they shoot in, and Hugh, and he's gone, like,
Yeah.
and I just roared. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, it'd be a little nicer if we cut that out. So
Well, this
Hugh
time it's all
gratefully
about
did that.
Sandra.
Oh, put it
This
all on
time.
me.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyways, David, thanks so much. And
Thank you.
Sandra,
Thank you.
for staying
Thank you
beyond.
so much. No problem. This was so well worth it.
Beyond the limit.
That was so well worth it. Nothing
So-
happens for no reason.
Okay, that's right. Absolutely.
So thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time right here on thatchannel.com.
Thank you.
Peace.